UFC 315 Montreal, I am for four. All four fighters I either thought would win or who I was rooting for wound up not getting the win last night. We'll start with Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Silva. I was definitely rooting for Alexa Grasso because I really like her boxing skills. However, she was not able to cut off the ring, cut off the cage versus Natalia Silva, who came up with a great game plan to deal with Alexa. Natalia simply employed constant lateral movement, both to her left and to her right, and Alexa was just never able to solve the problem that Natalia Silva presented. Every time Alexa Grasso would try to move forward to close the distance, Natalia would simply pick her off with some short, hard counter shots, either a straight hand or a hook. And those were, you could see the damage, they were knocking Alexa Grasso's head back. Between rounds, Alexa did look somewhat defeated in spirit on the stool. I can understand why, every time you try to make a move to be more aggressive, to go on the offense, you're getting countered hard. I could not hear the corner work from Grasso's coach to hear what they were saying in terms of corrective feedback. What should Alexa do? What should she not do to change up the game a little bit? But unfortunately for Alexa, she just wasn't able to find that gear shift, whether that should have been, say, a level change to move to a takedown or some type more feinting to work her way in, different footwork, changing up the rhythm. She just could not find that second gear to shift into. But huge props to Silva and Team Silva for coming up with a terrific game plan to deal with the high-level boxing skills that Alexa Grasso. So next up, the Jose Aldo fight versus Ayman Zahabi. I will admit that I knew nothing about Zahabi before I watched that fight, except for that he's the brother of Firas Zahabi, the coach known for working with Georges St. Pierre. That was kind of cool to see Georges in Ayman's corner, but as soon as the fight started, I immediately was not a fan of Zahabi's striking posture and skills. I just felt that he is very awkward, has a strange rhythm, and makes a lot of sort of excessive movements with his forearms, with his arms, and with his head. I'm not sure if that's his attempt to create feinting motions versus a striker, but to me, they're not a fan. I also didn't really like that he was using this pseudo semi-shell guard where he kept his left forearm at times across his belly and his other right hand kind of up, I guess, to parry. Nevertheless, the judges gave Zahabi 2 rounds out of 3. So, in my opinion, I thought Jose took the first 2 and Zahabi took the final 3rd round. But obviously the judges felt otherwise and maybe gave Zahabi the 2nd round. I'm not sure. I did not look into the scorecards for that. There's no doubt that Zahabi did win the 3rd round because towards the end of that round he had Jose Aldo on his back. Jose had him in full closed guard and was just defending Zahabi's rather light ground and pound from top position. I think at that point Zahabi knew he didn't really need to take Jose out with a TKO. He also didn't need to risk anything by posturing up, since Jose is such a fantastic jiu-jitsu practitioner. Posturing up with his torso upright or perpendicular to the canvas would have been a little bit risky for Zahabi. One question I have about that fight is, did the fact that Jose Aldo missed weight by 8 pounds, did that have an influence on the judge's decision? I would hope not, but was Zahabi the recipient of a little hometown cooking? Can't really answer that one either. I'd love to hear from you guys what you think. I mean, 8-pound weight miss is really significant because that pops you into the next weight division. So I have to give credit to Team Zahabi for continuing with the fight and being willing to take that risk with such a significant weight differential. Regardless, Jose Aldo did announce his retirement at the end of that fight. I feel a little badly for him because I think every fighter deserves to go out on a high note. Certainly a Hall of Fame fighter like Jose Aldo. So I wish it could have gone in his favor so he could go out on a win. But something tells me that may not be the absolute last time we see Jose Aldo in combat sport. I'm I'm almost hoping that he takes a boxing fight simply to show off or to utilize his high-level boxing skills. Of course, that needs to be well matched with a good promotion. But even if that's the last time we see Jose Aldo in hand-to-hand combat, I think we all, as fight fans, owe Aldo a huge thank you for the wonderful fights he's given us over the years. So thank you, Jose Aldo. Next up, in the co-main event, I picked Manon Fiorot to win that one based on the fact that she had superior wrestling skills. I feel that when we have two world-class strikers matched up, the differential has to be in their area of where they're less, right? Like, so it'd have to be who's the better at the lesser of their skill set, which in this case is the grappling/wrestling. And one thing I noticed about Manon is she has excellent timing with her wrestling entries, and she has really smooth, nice wrestling technique to get her opponent down on the ground. And to her credit, Manon did time her entries well. She did defend Valentina's entries very well. I thought that was a terrific high-level fight between two world-class athletes. I feel like the main issue that Manon had in that fight was she just didn't quite shift gears early enough to get 3 rounds out of 5. She did shift gears when her corner really urged her to later on in the fight, but it was a little bit too little too late type thing. But I think that Manon will understand now how the pacing of a 5-round fight works, and now her body understands the pacing of how those 5 rounds go by. So here we have to give Valentina Shevchenko huge credit, because she knew that, like she knew internally how to get this 3 rounds out of 5, how to get the win without getting greedy, if that makes sense. Sometimes if a fighter feels they can win, but they want to get greedy, they want that big KO moment or a submission, that's when they can open themselves up to taking too many risks. And Valentina has the maturity and savvy and discipline not to do that. So Valentina earned my respect in that fight. I do look forward to seeing what Manon Fiorot does next. I look forward to seeing her fight again, because I really appreciate the fact that she's a world-class striker who also has very nice. Finally, in the main event, again, I called it wrong. I thought Belal Muhammad's experience would outweigh Jack Della Madalena's lack of experience in a 5-round fight. However, there were 2 key things that Jack did really well and really effectively that I feel secured him the victory. First, Jack Della Madalena made great use of an effective jab. He threw that jab right from the start in round 1. He throws a nice sharp jab. He mixes up his targets from head to body. He mixes up the timing and tempo of his jab, and what this does is it keeps his opponent guessing, and it allows Jack to effectively set up the rest of his combinations, the strikes that come behind that jab. Notice that Belal throws more of what we tend to call a lazy jab. Doesn't have bad intentions on it. You could tell Belal's not really trying to connect with his jab, because his jab ends maybe 8 inches shy of its target area. It's also not thrown with a lot of meanness behind it. So I feel that Jack was able to take advantage of Belal's lazy jab, not so much exactly in the moment by countering it, by just, if Jack starts to realize there's no threat behind this jab, he can just effectively ignore that jab and just focus on executing what he wants to do. Now, the second key thing that Jack did really well, and all the credit to Team Della Madalena, because they figured out how to work that position that Belal really loves, which is both fighters have their right shoulder against the cage, Belal has their back with a body lock, both fighters are bent over, and that's how Belal really dominated Leon to take the belt. So it was clear to me that Team Della Madalena game planned this and drilled this, because you notice that Jack, when Jack was in that position, kind of doubled over with Belal on his back, he would throw up his leg as if he was going to do a Harai Goshi throw, but he really just used that leg as a post to then pivot right around and reverse the position on Belal and effectively just get off the cage if that's what he wanted, or to completely just reverse it and get Belal's back. I saw Jack do this more than once, so that shows me that that's something that Team Della Madalena really worked on in fight camp. So excellent game planning, and props to them for drilling this so that it just became automatic for Jack to execute that under the pressure of the bright lights in a title challenge. Now, both the co-main and main events here were terrific fights, and I feel like the fans definitely won in this case with UFC 315, particularly in the main card. What were your favorite, Mike? What were your favorite moments from UFC 315? Please let us know in the comments. Thank you.